The Alpha Zero vessel drifted silently for 13 days when the first alarm sounded. Eduardo, the systems engineer, adjusted the sensors for the 10th time, but the numbers were undeniable. Something was moving beyond the hull, something that reflected neither light nor emitted heat. Crew members avoided the cargo bay, where the emptiness seemed denser, as if space itself had been sucked inward. Captain Ryunis ordered secrecy, but whispers already raced across the frontier of infinity. They spoke of a place where the laws of physics bent, something ancient. Eduardo noticed dark stains on the metal near the starboard engine, shapes resembling fossilized veins or roots. When he touched one, his glove disintegrated, revealing translucent fingers, as if his flesh had turned to jelly. In the infirmary, Dr. Kami examined the body of Fama, the biologist who had died hours after collecting a sample from the external void. His organs had migrated to his spine, forming a pulsating mass that emitted a low hum. No one explained how he had left the sealed laboratory. The Talos ship's AI began repeating phrases in unknown languages during routine reports, and the Geiger counter registered 0, even as unknown particles traversed the corridors. Eduardo dreamt of a tall, slender figure made of static, saying, "You've opened the wrong door," in 10 languages simultaneously. On the 15th day, the power failed. The lights flickered, and for a second, everyone saw a colossal structure hovering beyond the windows, an impossible geometry of spirals that unfurled and reformed. Ryunis ordered an evacuation, but the engines were unresponsive. Eduardo found Fama's journal hidden in a cabinet, pages scribbled with equations that proved the existence of something using purple holes as bridges. The last entry read, "They are not hostile, only curious, but curiosity kills more than hatred." When the entity entered through the hatch, there was no scream or struggle. The crew simply began dismantling the ship piece by piece, as if receiving direct instructions from their bones. Eduardo still held the notebook when his hands fused with the console's metal, and he understood that the frontier was never a place. It was a test, and they had been the answer. The Alpha Zero vanished from records, but on a distant orbital station, an employee found a package with no return address. Inside, a purple cube with symbols that changed with the angle. When he touched it, he heard voices whispering in harmony, "Now you know where we are." The employee laughed, signed the routine report, and went home, where his wife noticed he was scratching his neck with a hand that had 6 fingers. The orbital station employee, Karina, spent 3 days observing the purple cube before deciding to take it home. The symbols on its surface now formed patterns resembling neural circuits, and sometimes he swore he heard laughter echoing from inside the object when he left it alone in the storage room. His wife, Lisa, began complaining of nightly voices and an odd dampness in the air, even with the climate control systems functioning perfectly. On the 3rd night, Karina awoke with his 6-fingered hand pressing the cube against his chest, while streams of dark, viscous liquid flowed from his eyes. In the morning, he reported to his supervisor that the thing wanted to be eaten, but didn't explain how he knew. In Fama's former cabin, within what remained of the Alpha Zero, a holographic journal began projecting itself. The biologist's equations danced in fractal patterns, describing how the entity used organic matter as a translator of language. "They need a living dictionary," read a newly unlocked entry, "and we are the words." Somewhere in the ship, a pulsating organ still beat in rhythm with a human heart, synchronized with the residual energy cycles. Dr. Kami, the ship's physician, was the last to realize that her patient, Fama's corpse, had vanished from the infirmary. In its place, she found a pile of ship parts, meticulously arranged in a spiral. When she tried to report this to Captain Ryunis, she discovered the woman had no memory of giving evacuation orders. The Talos AI interrupted the conversation to recite a poem about stars born from corpses. Meanwhile, at one of the abandoned research stations near Eduardo's sector, a group of miners discovered a tunnel that wasn't there the day before. The walls glowed with a gelatinous substance that reacted to touch, forming ephemeral faces. One of them, removing his helmet to smell the air, had his nostrils filled with microscopic tentacles that began reconstructing his skull from the inside out. His screams were registered as cosmic interference by the sensors of the nearest ship. Karina, now with his skin acquiring a spongy texture, took the cube to the station's meeting room. During the quarterly presentation, while colleagues discussed or quotas, he connected the object to the central system. Data screens crumbled into interference patterns that formed phrases in Latin, Sanskrit, and a language that existed only in dreams. Before being contained, it whispered, "They are learning to speak for us." Later records showed that all the station's cameras were deactivated for exactly 13 seconds, the same time the Alpha Zero spent in silence before the first alarm. On the 16th day after the ship's disappearance, a child on the Delta 9 station drew a figure with 9 fingers on paper using a paint that evaporated when observed. Her parents laughed until they noticed the girl's right hand had developed a membrane between the fingers, like a marine creature's fin. That night, the communications sector received a transmission from the Alpha Zero, but when deciphered, it was only static organized in the form of a smile. The Delta 9 child, Mira, began drawing spirals on all surfaces, even the walls of her containment cell. Doctors couldn't explain the membrane between her fingers or the purple liquid that flowed from her ears while she slept. Her mother, a former cargo pilot, recognized the patterns in the drawings. They were star charts she could only have seen in the Alpha Zero's encrypted archive. When asked who had taught her, Mira pointed to the void behind them and said, "He has many eyes, but no face." At the orbital station where Corina worked, the purple cube had integrated into the energy center's core. Employees reported seeing colleagues with elongated limbs and translucent skin, but security footage showed only interference. A maintenance team sent to inspect the reactor vanished, leaving behind empty uniforms filled with a substance that seemed to breathe. Hours later, the uniforms walked to the depressurization chamber and self-destructed, scattering brilliant spores into the void. Dr. Kami, the Alpha Zero's physician, finally found Fama, or what remained of him, floating in the waste disposal. His body had transformed into a swarm of microscopic organs that blinked in Morse code. Upon touching it, she saw flashes of memories that weren't hers, a city in a lightless dimension, creatures communicating through shared tumors, Eduardo's voice whispering, "We are the tongue they use to lick the universe." When she awoke, she was holding a beating liver, and all the infirmary walls were covered in moving writing. Somewhere beyond the Alto Iris 40 system, the Alpha Zero emerged intact but empty. Its systems registered a single repeated message, "Translation complete." The entity, now visible as a shadow with constellations' outlines, hovered near the ship, projecting holograms of all species that had ever crossed the frontier. The faces merged into a mass of teeth and smiling eyes, while rearranging the ship's molecular structure into something new. Corina, now unrecognizable, reached the Alpha Zero through an air tunnel connecting his station directly to space. His 6 fingers danced across the consoles, reactivating systems with commands that mixed quantum calculus and poetry. When Captain Ryunis tried to stop him, he embraced her, and their bodies dissolved into a mist that wrote "Thank you" in 1,000 languages before dissipating. On Earth, a nameless man awoke in a white room with a cube-shaped scar on his chest. He remembered nothing, but looking in the mirror, he saw Mira drawing in his iris. In a Delta 9 meeting room, the girl's drawing came to life, revealing coordinates to a place where time bent like paper. And at the center of it all, the purple cube, now a distant star, pulsed in sync with the heartbeats of billions, whispering, "We learned to love for you."